All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another movie comm. Just got myself nice and cozy, and we will be commentating while watching The Dark Knight. And I've always wanted to do this one for a long time, and here we go. And I'm watching this on HBO Max, known as Max now, I guess. And we are going to press play, and we're about what? We're at the Warner Brothers logo to where the sign is the regular Dark Knight sign. Well, before we get into the motion picture. So we're about to press play in three, two, one, press play. And when this film came out in 2008, Batman Begins obviously had left a uh, very lasting impression. It was official that Batman was back, and with the reveal of the Joker being the next villain at the end of that film, let's just say people had high expectations. And not only did they have high expectations, but they were hyped because we hadn't seen Joker as the main villain in a Batman film since 1989, which was the very first Michael Keaton film, which actually was the biggest Batman film. And over here we see the fire, which which is basically a symbol of escalation. And you see that you see the bat logo come up. And what at first I thought that there was something wrong with the projector or something like that in the movie theater because there was no sound. But no, it's part of the movie that it's not supposed to have sound, right? It's not supposed to have any sound with the fire and all that kind of stuff. So and the film starts with obviously this was filmed in Chicago, so you get like an outside little shot of the city, which is obviously supposed to be Gotham. And there's the man himself, but we don't know. We suspect it's him, but we're not entirely sure yet. But he puts the mask on, and basically we go straight into the scene that's about to happen at this point. So these guys are ziplining from building to building, and the Joker had made a plan all along. So and now these guys are basically talking about what they're going to be doing. Don't forget the guy who planned the job. He thinks he can just sit out and take a slice. And now I know why they call him the Joker. But at this point, he's right along there with them. And obviously they have no idea. So, he's the quiet one. And that's him right there. And it's actually very interesting how the camera follows him, right? So that's kind of a hint to the audience right there, because the camera is following him as opposed to everybody else. So now we've got these guys that are basically doing this whole bank robbery thing. So basically at this point, uh you know general bank robbery, hostage situation, that sort of thing, well, to a certain extent. um and basically at this point, and one of them takes out their own kind. And at this point you're thinking, oh, maybe that's just one of the guys getting greedy, and it's like, no, there's more to it than that. And of course there's the big bad boy safe. And this bank robbery scene reminds me a lot of what's it called, it reminds me a lot of what is that movie called, Point Break, with Keanu Reeves. And yeah, Point Break. And it also reminds me of Heat to a certain extent. And then you got the brave guy that works at the bank that has that's armed with a shotgun. And obviously you could tell that they weren't expecting that. And he's got plenty of rounds, and he's firing it all over the place. And then the other guy's asking him if he's out of bullets. He's like, yeah, he's out, right? And then boom, guy gets taken down. And now he's out. And then boom, gets shot in the knee. And then we don't see any blood whatsoever. I think we see just a little bit of red mist, and that's again because this movie is rated PG-13. So if you were to actually have blood spray, it would make it rated R. But they cleverly made it to where it was like that. So, and this is where we start to see that every single one of these guys has been told by the Joker to do kill out these other guys. And wow, look at all that money in that safe. Ooh. And then at this point, he's like, I'm betting the Joker told you to kill me. Like, no, I killed the bus driver. He's like, bus driver? So then he moves from side to side. He's like, what bus driver? And then boom, bus comes in, hits the guy, and that was that. Lots of money, lots of bags full of money. 3 bags full of them, actually. Joker looks around, boom, shoots that guy. Again, very minimal red mist over there. And at this point, this is when we first get to see the Joker's real face. And he says, whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger. I remember that people were really skeptical of Heath Ledger, and I love the fact that he just proved everybody wrong in this film, especially after we first saw him in like one of the trailers, and then it was like any doubts were officially like put to rest after that. So, and then this guy over here thinks he's gonna be. He thought he was gonna explode, but nope, he did not. So perfect. The bus gets out of there and just gets in line with the rest of the buses. Go figure. And just perfect timing as the cops arrive. And then we go on to the night. So, and it's actually very and the dark the Batman logo goes up and people start to see it in the sky. And when they see that in the sky, they're like, "Oh shit." Um and then despite the fact that they have lower chances running into Batman, the criminals are not taking the risk. So, at this point, the interesting thing about all this is that Batman at this point is already like, and the cops have no suspects. It's hilarious. And then Commissioner Gordon, of course, just looking at the logo, at the symbol. Um, but I like the fact that he often doesn't show up, and he's like, I like reminding people that he's out there. And he's like, why hasn't he shown? It's like, hopefully because he's busy. And the film starts out with him from his Batman Begins costume, his Batman Begins uniform. And then we start to see, your regular criminals doing what they do. And, they got dogs. So, got yourself a Rottweiler there. And, of course, some hostages and armed guys with guns, of course. And the Scarecrow makes an appearance once again. So, um, yeah. And the dogs are going nuts. And then there's a guy in the dark right there posing as Batman. And at first, I'm sure everybody thought it was Batman, but it's not. And then now we know that that's not Batman. And of course, it's not Batman because he used a shotgun. So it's like, using guns. So Batman inspired people at this point. So, and then they let the dogs go. And then it takes out one of the guys. And another guy gets maced in the face. And there's the tumbler making its famous appearance. And we're all suspecting that Batman's in there. And yep, there he is. That's him. But he's actually not in the tumbler. So, but it fires a shot, I believe. Yep, intimidate the guys by firing a shot, which worked. Didn't kill anybody, of course. And these guys are about to leave, and then Batman shows up for real and then takes out one of the copycats. And then starts taking people out in general. hand-to-hand combat. And then one of the dogs actually bites him pretty good, and it reminds you that yeah, he's still very vulnerable. Again, they took the Batman persona and made it as realistic as possible, which this movie constantly reminds you of. And that's going to leave a bruise, and then you can see that he's been hit and he's been bitten. So can't forget about that. And over here we see that he needs to make a jump, in which he does. And boom, he manages to stop the car, and up there's Jonathan Crane yet again. And at this time he's like, we're trying to help you. He's like, what makes you, what's the difference between you and me? He's like, I'm not wearing hockey pads. So, and yes, that is a difference. Batman does definitely not wear hockey pads. Not only does he not wear hockey pads, but the suit, for some reason, I don't know about you guys, but the suit in this one looks a little bit different. A little bit different and a little bit weirder than it did in the first film. I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was, well, the cowl at least looks a little, I don't know. Let me get a better, closer look. It's about the same, but I don't know. It just looked better in the first film. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. So at this point, at this point, at this point, they're going to put Joker aside at this point. And I like the fact that there's, official word between Batman and Gordon. And obviously, it's very, very important. It's obviously very interesting that they have really quick cuts in this film, and rightfully so, because this is a 2.5 hour film, which makes sense. And then Alfred goes to give Bruce some food for breakfast or whatnot. He's not there. Of course he's not. So he's somewhere in a junkyard or whatnot. And in that junkyard, you got a little something that takes you down below into what the new, what the temporary Bat Cave is, at least, while Wayne Manor is being built or rebuilt. So, and you got the tumbler in there. You got a whole bunch of other shit. We can swap not sleeping in a penthouse, not sleeping in a mansion. So, stitching himself up at this point while looking at the computers and shit. Then, of course, Alfred is always good for that. And at this point, he starts to realize that he's lacking. He's like, "Did you get mauled by a tiger?" He's like, "No, it was a dog, a big dog." And a lot of copycats. So at this point, they're looking at the differences that they've made over the time, and they're looking at Harvey Dent, and of course we see Rachel Dawes, and she's played by a completely different actress, and she's dating Harvey Dent, which makes it very interesting as well. So, and there's lots of bruises from everything he takes on, and he's not as buff as he was in the first film, of course, but in the first film he was also fatter because he had put on a lot of, you know dirty weight as well. But again, he had come back from just filming The Machinist, in which he lost a considerable amount of weight, an insane amount of weight actually. But now we have the courtroom, and Maggie Gyllenhaal is a really good Rachel Dawes as well. I mean, it's like they definitely cast the right woman for this role. Um, and it's very interesting how they have a relationship despite the fact that they're in court together and all that. So, um, and of course, Aaron Eckhart was a really good a really good Harvey Dent, a really good cast for Harvey Dent. He's got like a charisma about him. And again, not like Billy D or anything like that, just a different flavor of charisma. And yeah. Um, and of course, got one guy here. Of course, Maroney is the big guy, but he's basically, this guy's actually standing up for him and saying he's the main guy when he's not. And he gets a gun pointed at him and he takes him out with a. And a little bit of showing off in court to a certain extent, but again, it also just goes to show you that, you know, when you're a big shot lawyer, at the same time, it's like you got to bring that charisma about you, and that's what Aaron Eckhart did a very good job with in this film. He brought that charisma, and you actually get to see his transition from, you know, the badass attorney into what he ends up being later on. And it's kind of interesting how they kind of mesh both those personalities together. I thought that was really cool how they do that. And his office has a hell of a view, but of course he's stacked with papers all over the place, and it looks like he's just moved in there. So, and at this point, he wants to meet Batman. So at this point, he's like, "Yep, we got to catch the Batman on site." um, but Mob is still getting their money out, and at this point, they're trying to get rid of the mob by hitting them in their wallets. And there's a lot of money laundering going on. There's, you know, people that are getting their money out. So, um, and basically at this point right here, Gordon's basically telling him that he's got to do the best with what he's got. And he's basically telling him that he can give him the names of the banks. Um, and it's a start. And they all know that he's Gotham's White Knight. And basically, he's a lawyer who's actually trying to do the right thing. So, and then, oh, we got Wayne Tower, of course. I remember, I haven't seen that in a while, but at this point, Wayne Enterprises, he's Bruce is going to be at the very end, of course, and he's asleep because, well, he's been out at night. So he's basically sleeping. And at this point, they probably, like, Lucius Fox knows what's going on, but Bruce, you know, he was out fighting crime all night. So, of course, he's going to be sleeping in. But other than that, it's going to be pretty badass in terms of like how it fits in with the billionaire personality, because like everybody views him as the way they view him, right? So it's like, yeah, him falling asleep at a meeting just makes sense. So, and then at this point, they're like, they were going to do a deal with Lau, and then at this point, he knows that there's some shady shit going on. He's like, okay, let's cancel the deal. And Bruce is telling Lucius that he needs a new suit, and drew up a few things, and he wants to be able to turn his head. And Lucius, of course, being the mastermind behind all this, he's like, yep, I'll see what I can do. which is very interesting. And here we see Rachel Dawes and Harvey Dent actually going to a restaurant that's actually owned by Bruce Wayne. I don't think they know that it's owned by Bruce Wayne, at least not yet. So Bruce shows up and he's got a date who's actually famous, prima ballerina for the Moscow Ballet. And he's like, tell me, he's like, let's get a table together. And he's like, oh, they should. I own the place. And at this point, it's actually kind of a throwback to the first film, because in the first film, uh, he was going to buy the hotel, and then he ended up owning the hotel. And I wonder if this is the hotel. I'm wondering. He's like, yep, I own the place. So, and this is one of the best lines in this entire movie is said here. Harvey Dent actually ends up saying, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain." And I think that that's a very, very good line. Not only do I think that that's a very good line, but I also think that it's how do I put this? It speaks so much to just regular things in life in general. Um, it speaks so very much to that, because you know you could be the good guy and still be seen as the bad guy, and he's saying it right here. And he's also saying, like, he's whoever Batman is, he can't do this forever. You know, how could he? And Bruce is right there just listening to all that, and he's like, you know, he's like, what about you, Mr. Dent? How about it's you? He's like, what if Harvey Dent is the Cape Crusader? Covers half of his face, and it's like, if I were sneaking out, somebody would have noticed by now. So, which basically confirms that they're definitely together. And at this point, Bruce basically tells him that he's going to throw him a fundraiser, and he's like, I'm not up for re-election for 3 years. He's like, nah, you'll never need another cent with my pals. And of course, it's always good to have somebody as powerful as Bruce Wayne, and capable. And this is probably one of the highlights of the movie right here. This little scene where all the mobsters are getting together and the Joker basically crashes the party, so to speak, right? So this is, and at this point, of course, it's also been known that all their money's been taken away, and basically the guy couldn't wait to get their money out of there. So, um, yeah, uh, they're not worried about Joker, and they're worried about their money being tracked by the cops, and um, yeah, so they were actually planning to seize the mob's funds actually on that day, but this guy already moved a few steps ahead, and they're getting the money out. So again, this movie really is kind of like a Godfather version of Batman. Um, um, so and basically they took all their money and basically took it to Hong Kong, to where the police have no jurisdiction. But Batman, on the other hand, is different. So he couldn't wait for their permission. So, and here comes Joker crashing the party. And in full Jokerness with his purple and his green. And he's like, how about a magic trick? Like, I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. And they're all looking at him like he's crazy and shit. And then boom. Joker takes out that one dude, and he's like, by the way, the suit wasn't cheap. You ought to know you bought it. But it looks messy too. If you look at really close at the suit, it looks like super messy. Everybody else's suits in that room is super clean. Joker's is like messy and dusty and shit. He's got that dirty look, which makes the character that much more of a mystery and intimidating, stuff like that. You start to wonder, it's like, where does this guy spend his nights? Like, where does he sleep? Does he sleep on the streets? I mean, you don't know. That's the thing. You don't know about this. And in this entire, I mean, he's seen as a freak. Nobody's taking him seriously. And then before long, they start taking him seriously. And at this point, he knows that they're they're afraid of Batman. So, and one of them knows this. Maroni knows this. He could tell. So, so Batman is showing Gotham your true colors, unfortunately, and then Dent is just the beginning. Like Joker's basically telling them the truth, and they're actually listening. Um, and he's already telling them, he's like, as for the television's plan, Batman's got no jurisdiction. He's gonna find him and make him squeal. It's like, I know the squealers when I see him, and yeah, so yeah, that guy's a squealer basically. He's like, what do you propose? He's like, yeah, it's simple. We kill the Batman. He's like, if it's so simple, why haven't you done it already? It's like, well, if you're good at something, never do it for free. Like, how much do you want? He's like, half. People start asking him. They're like, you're crazy. He's like, I'm not. No, I'm not. He's telling him, it's like, if we don't deal with this now, soon, it's like little Gamble here won't be able to get a nickel for his grandma. And I'm like, yeah, Gamble over here is losing his shit, and then Joker is just armed with grenades that with just one pull of the pin can make them explode. And he's like, you think you can just steal from us and walk away? He's like, yeah. And then at this point he's like, puts a bounty on Joker's head, and he's like, here's my card, call me when you want to take this seriously. So yep, for a guy who claims not to have a plan, it's quite amazing how he plans for everything, right? So because that's what this entire film is about. It's like he says he just does things, but he doesn't. He's got a plan for everything that he does, right? So it's like, damn, you can't, it's one of those things that makes him such a big mystery, you know, because he's got a plan in terms of the way he works and what he does. I mean, everything that he does like takes planning. So it's like, and then of course, Harvey Dent and what's, you know, and Gordon are talking to Batman. He's like, we need to allow back because he went to Hong Kong. He's like, if I get him to you, can get him to talk. And he's like, yep, I can get him to sing. Um, Going after the mob's money. So at this point, Batman disappears and he knows he's got to go to Hong Kong. So, and then at this point, he kind of tells Lucius that they need to, wow, Wayne Enterprises has basically been resurrected, obviously. I mean, not Enterprise, excuse me, the Applied Sciences Division has been resurrected because it was kind of put down to nothing at some point. Um, and at this point, another cool thing is that Lucius has the answers, and he's built a few things. He's built some new stuff for him, and he's got pieces of the suit in there, brand new, faster and more agile. And yeah, the gauntlets can shoot out. And read the instruction manuals first. And I loved his expression upon the gauntlets shooting out. He had a Patrick Bateman moment there. Um, and he says, how will it do against dogs? Like it should do fine against cats. So he's got the new suit and everything. So and then Alfred, of course, being a mastermind himself, he's like, they got to think of an alibi, and he's like, yep, Bruce Wayne takes the ascends with entire Russian ballet with on a boat. And here comes the plane. And he's like, apply your own bloody suntan lotion. Tell me that in Russian because they think that he's supposed to apply it for them. Um, but yeah, he's got his bag, and there comes the plane, and he's on his way over. On his way to China. And then you got Gamble over here playing his little game of pool, of course, and there's Joker pretending to be dead. He's like, dead? That's 500,000. And of course, he's not dead. And then you get this scene over here because Michael Jai White, the guy who plays Gamble, really, really good actor, and he does a good job for the brief time that he's in this film. And again, with Joker, it's just like he puts on again one of those scenes, absolutely one of those scenes to where it's like, and you look at Michael Jai White, and it's like, again, his performance with his facial expressions is just so awesome. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors, and he's also probably my overall favorite martial artist. The man has eight. He's got black belts in various degrees in 8 different styles. He's absolutely amazingly skilled, and he's very good at what he does. And he's done a lot of small films throughout his career, and this is one of the bigger ones, even though he was in it very briefly. But um, it's again, very, very volatile act. Volatile, excuse me, a very versatile actor. So, and of course, that's the last we see of him because Joker just took him out. So at this point right now, he's talking about forming the team and all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, and then they're gonna have like tryouts and shit. So, um, yeah. So at this point, it's very interesting how he's gathering all sorts of different people in order to help his cause, so to speak, right? For the Joker to like put all the pieces together in terms of what he's trying to do. And the thing is, um, nobody knows exactly what he's up to until it's pretty much all set and done. So, which is the most beautiful thing about the character. So, and then getting the cell phones out, and then they have Morgan Freeman is just so damn volatile. So basically, at this point, Lau and he basically tells him that we have to you had to stop business negotiations. Like a simple phone call would have sufficed. He's like, so Lucius Fox basically has to do Bruce Wayne's bidding. Point so. And he's got his own cell phone, and the guy had to put his cell phone back. And that cell phone is there for a reason. And Bruce Wayne has been there all along, checking out the sites, of course, pretending to be, I don't know, a tourist or something. But someone like Bruce Wayne, of course, how in the world do you not recognize him here in China? One of those suspension of disbelief things. Regardless of the fact that the movie itself is being very what's it called? Besides the fact that the movie is being very very realistic, as possible, it's it's different. And this is the scene, of course, where we first see Batman in his suit, the one that we would see for the rest of the trilogy. And I'm just wondering, like, what do you guys think of this? What do you think of the suit? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's mediocre? Do you think it's better than the original? All that kind of stuff. He puts the cowl on, and then the cape comes out later. But he's got this little gun with explosives that he's firing. Get into the other building that's far away in order to get Mr. Lau. Again, more gadgets. Can't go wrong with the gadgets. And it's amazing how one little cell phone has enough power to kind of make things go down in terms of the shit. Which is pretty interesting. But it alerts the guards, of course. Now this we need to see more scenes like this to where they take place at night, because this is this is where Batman does what he does, because he operates at night. Although in the Dark Knight Rises we see him operate during the day as well, but I think it was specifically for that. But I think the Dark Knight Rises finale should have taken place at night, um but it didn't, for whatever reason, but that's fine. Um you can't go wrong with what Christopher Nolan has in mind. And then you see the cape doing what it's doing, and the cape is like perfect in terms of the bat symbol, in terms of the kind of bat symbol that we see now. So pretty damn cool, if you ask me. And again, Batman doing what he's doing. And it's pretty cool how he kind of appears and disappears. So they've got enough of the fiction in there, um but they've got plenty of nonfiction as well. It's like you start to wonder, like, can a person actually be Batman? And that's one of the things that made this film um so endearing for so many people, because it's like you were asking yourself, could this person be Batman? And it's true. I mean, it's to a certain extent they can, but it's pretty damn expensive. You'd be surprised of how expensive it is to actually be Batman. So in terms of getting all the gadgets and everything like that, not just that, I mean, there's more to it than that. There's a lot of stuff. And I think this suit here is actually darker first suit, which is great. And it's obviously new, so which you can obviously tell. Um, but yeah, at this point, he's got a plane coming, and wham bam, there they go. And he's got him. And now they go back to the and Batman literally delivers him outside of the to he's delivered to Lieutenant Gordon, and right there by the cops. And again, Rachel Dawes in this in the little scene right here with everybody. And the actor that plays Lau is a really good actor. He really plays his part very well. So he won't give her the money, but he'll give you the clients, all of them. So he's like, I'm good with calculation. I handled all the investments, one big pot. So at this point, exactly what he wanted to hear. They pooled their money. We can charge them all as one criminal conspiracy. In a RICO case, if you can, one of them, you got all of them. What kind of details do you have about this communal fund? Says Rachel, and he's like, ledger's note and a chartered plane back to Hong Kong after you testify in open court. And I'm just curious, with all your clients locked up, what's going to happen with all that money? Like I said, I'm good with calculation. You can't go to county at this point. Like, you got to keep them here. He's like, what is this, your fortress? He's like, trust them over at county? Like, I don't trust them here. So at this point, um, you know, Gordon just basically tells him straight out, he's like, law stays. So very interesting how you've seen that. Now, some of these guys are starting to say that the mobsters are starting to say that Joker was right. And at this point, they're all getting ready to get arrested. And here comes Gordon, coming in, walking in. He's like, you want to embarrass me in front of my friends? And he's like, no, don't worry. You got the cops coming in as well. And one of the mobsters couldn't even finish his meal, and then they arrest all of them, basically. Um, so many counts of extortion, racketeering, you name it. And we got a Joker card found in one of the judge's papers, which is usually not a good sign. He's like, how did the defendants plead? And then they start talking. So at this point, it's like, how did you convince Cirillo to hear? And then, of course, when you get the right judge, of course, it makes the difference. So at this point, they're going to set a new record of appeals. And, the thing is that the head guys will make bail because they got the most money, but the mid guys will stay in. So clean streets, think of all you can do with 18 months. And at this point, the commissioner and the lieutenant were told to get out, and then Dent talking with the mayor, I think. Very interesting how everything kind of folds into place when it comes to this film. It really is like the Godfather of Batman. And to this day, it really is amazing after all this time how this is still considered the best Batman by many eyes. And then boom, we get ourselves a little bit of a jump scare moment where Joker killed some dude and put him in a bat suit, but it wasn't Batman. Will the real Batman please stand up? A little bit of Eminem thrown in there. And of course, Bruce doesn't know about this just. But at this point, now he finds out. So Bruce Wayne in complete Bruce Wayne form over here, and when you see everything. And then Joker, of course, being on the news. And again, Heath Ledger just doing an amazing job as the character and really making it his own and really taking it to another level compared to what Nicholson did. But he's doing it right. Well, he's again for this particular film. So this is what is going on. And at this point, Joker basically threatens kill people starting at that very night if Batman doesn't, telling everybody that he's a word. So, yeah. And then of course Bruce Wayne's got his penthouse all the way at the top where he's party, which he shows up with like a couple of chicks later on. So, um, of course Rachel making her appearance there, and then there's you've known Rachel all her life. Well, not yet, sir. Any psychotic ex-boyfriends I should be aware of? And he's like, oh, you have no idea. And Harvey's just like, whatever. So here comes Bruce via helicopter, and then with like two chicks, I think. doing his billionaire playboy thing, just entering with two chicks in the room. So I really love that you got to see the billionaire Bruce Wayne persona. And this almost kind of reminds me of Patrick Bateman to a certain extent. Um, and then Rachel thinks that he's making fun of him, that Bruce is making fun of Harvey. Um, I, and he tells her no, that he meant every word. And he doesn't, Harvey doesn't know him, but Rachel knows him, but he has to tell her later on because she thinks that he's true. And then Bruce just pours the champagne out of the bottle and gets out of there. Basically just goes to show you, not drinking on the job. He's like, nope, I meant every word. And then at this point, right now, Bruce tells Rachel that, hey, you remember that day that where it's no longer, where people are no longer needing Batman. And it's like he locked up half of the city's criminals and he did it without wearing a mask. And that's the thing. Like, that's another interesting point of this film. It's like Bruce is wearing the suit and he's doing a lot, but he's not. He can't do what Harvey's doing. He told himself, he's like, "You're the symbol of hope I can never be." And that's the thing about this film is that, like, and that's what makes it so great, is that you've got all these different layers going on. And right now, right here, you've got the judge, of course, and then you've got Joker doing what he's doing, and they believe that the Joker's threatened a few very important people. So, and you got the commissioner over here who's basically saying, "I've learned to deal with this a while ago," and he gets out some wine or whiskey or whatever that is. And it's really amazing how many twists and turns this all takes place in. And then at this point, Harvey's making his big move with Rachel, and he wants to be with her. Um, seriously, and she doesn't know what to say. She doesn't have an answer at this point, and one of the reasons is because of Bruce, probably. And at this point, the commissioner took a swig of that, took a sip of that drink, and yep. And there you go. Joker cards everywhere, explosions. The commissioner looks like cyanide or whatever it was. And here we go. They invaded Bruce's place because they know that's where Harvey is, and that's why Bruce knocked him out and took him in the. Again, another good scene here by Heath, just coming in as the Joker, armed and just stealing the show, of course. Taking a piece of that shrimp. He's like, I've only got one question. Where is Harvey Dent? I wonder if him eating that piece of shrimp or whatever, or what he's about to do in a few of these scenes here, is improvised in terms of the like the champagne. And there was definitely some improv in this entire film, but but I'm pretty sure Heath took it to a whole other level. And look at that, Bruce's room, and there were two people that were literally just got done having sex in his room. So, um, again, Heath Ledger, terrific job once more. And he's telling me, he's like, you know what, you remind me of my father. He's like, I hated my father, and Rachel's like, stop, and here we go again. Like, you must be Harvey Squeeze, which again is taken from um I don't know if that was originally written in the graphic novels or comics, but I've definitely heard it in the cartoons, I believe. He's like, is it the scars? You want to know how I got them? And then he starts explaining to her about the whole thing. And then she's like, oh, somebody tells me I worry too much, I have a smile more. Like, I just want to see her smile again. I don't care about the scars, so I stick a razor in my mouth and I do this. And it's like, again, all the different stories that he makes up. It's like you can't. It's like it's all BS in terms of what he says. You can't tell. So he's like, I'm always smiling. I see the funny side. I'm always smiling. He takes a knee to the groin, and then Batman kind of appears out of nowhere and starts taking people out. And you get a much better view of the cape this time. Same cape though, too. Makes sense. And again, it's shown very briefly that Joker obviously wouldn't be able to stand a fight with Batman toe to toe, obviously. And he basically lets Rachel out of the building. And he dove after her. And this part right here, I was hoping for something a little bit more better, but he just kind of lands on a car and it killed both of them from that high up. And I thought to myself, I'm like, couldn't he have done something with the cape? Couldn't he have thought of something better? So, and again, so much has already happened, and we're only like, under an hour, just under an hour into the film, which is amazing. And when you look at what, like, at this point, any doubt about Heath Ledger was already dropped. Nobody had any more doubts about him after this. And of course, Christian Bale doing what he does. And of course, um, you've got uh, everything that's going on with Bruce, and then the conversations with Alfred, and it's like, and of course, there's always little nods to the first film, which is great because Ra's al Ghul, played by Liam Neeson, was the person who taught him that criminals are not complicated. Um, so, but this one is. This is what makes the Joker an interesting character. So Alfred tells him this story um, about the jewels and everything like that, and why some people stole them. You know, um, and the bandit that took the jewels threw them away. And he's like, "Why steal them?" And he's like, "He thought it was good sport." He's like, "Some men don't care about anything logical. They can't buy them, you can't bully them, you can't negotiate with them. It's like some men just want the." And that's Joker. It's like there's no logic behind it. Well, there's logic, but it's different. This is a completely different type of criminal that Batman is dealing with now, because he's never had to deal with anything like that before. He's never had to deal with anything like that before. So it's like, when you're a man of logic and you're trying to figure it out from that aspect, it's like, nope, it's not going to make all that much sense. I've always said this before, and I said, look, I love Superman, and I love the character of Superman. I think Batman and Superman are two of the best superheroes ever created, ever written, all that kind of stuff. But I've always said to people, I've said, look, if Superman had to deal with Joker on a regular basis, Superman would probably lose his mind. It just makes perfect sense that Batman would be the ultimate superhero to deal with him. And Batman is a superhero, believe it or not, because of his logic and because of his smarts and everything like that. So it's but the thing is, even in this film, it wasn't completely shown just how smart he really is. At least not completely. Um, like in this part right here, you get a little glimpse of it, but in terms of getting the bullet out for the fingerprints and shit like that. But um, uh, ultimately, it's like we have yet to see everything that Batman is capable of. But again, this film wasn't necessarily meant to show that to that extent, because of the fact that um, because this is a realistic partake of the character. So, um, because with Batman, even though he's got no superpowers, like when you see all the stuff that he does, it's like, how do you put this? It's like there's a lot of fake stuff in there. So, so, so at this point, one of the workers at Wayne Enterprises, or one of the guys, um, did some stuff with Wayne Enterprises files, and the Batmobile and stuff like that. So at this point, he's like, I want $10 million a year for the rest of my life. He's like, let me get this right. So he's attempting to blackmail. He's like, you think one of the wealthiest, most powerful men in the world is secretly a vigilante who spends his nights beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands, and your plan is. And he's like, good luck. So they took care of that. I remember the theater really getting a laugh out of that. And reconstructing the bullet, and there's a fingerprint. So at this point, one of the more interesting things about this is that Lucius is he's right up there fighting the fight with Bruce, but obviously he's fighting it from a different angle. So it's almost like Bruce has two Alfreds, which is really great because not only was Lucius really well cast, but also his character was really well written. It's like having two different Alfreds, but in different ways, but in a great way though. And I love how Morgan Freeman plays it. I've always loved how Morgan Freeman plays it because he always plays it so well. He always does an amazing job. Always. So, and then you've got the parade going on in which Joker is probably going to do something, in which he does, and then Bruce Wayne is doing his part. And I love like the pacing of this film from start to finish actually stays very consistent. There's hardly any slowdown time. Like when you look at like what Chris Nolan did with this film, it's like wow, like for a movie that has to do so much, it just goes to show you that like his pacing is really masterful, and his in terms of working with his editor as well is really masterful. And uh, the fact that they paced this film as fast as they did at the speed that they did it in, and giving us so much in just 2.5 hours is freaking awesome. So um and again, the pacing in those, like when you have a pace of a film that's like 2.5 hours long, that stays consistent from start to finish, is like damn, you know what I mean? It's just like holy hell. So, and in one scene here, very briefly, we actually see Joker without his makeup, or without his white makeup, to speak. So, and again, Christian Bale with Batman in terms of what he does, um, in terms of when he plays, the three personalities of Batman. There's moments where he's not wearing the suit, and there's the Batman comes very briefly though, and you see it in his eyes. And that's one of the things that you take from Keaton. It's one of the things you take away from all the other actors that have played Batman. It's all in the eyes, especially the ones that are really really good. Um, um, it's Yep, there he is right there. Heath Ledger without all he's got is the scar makeup on the lips, but he manages to disappear into the crowd. And Gordon got shot, and we all think at this point that Gordon is dead. Um, but it was actually kind of a reverse trap or setup, which ends up working later on. So sirens wailing, gunshots going off. So and the cops show up to Gordon's wife's house. Everybody thinks he's dead. And at this point, even the audience, we even think he's gone. And Batman was there as well. He's right there. And the kid spotted Batman. And at this point, they turn on the logo, the symbol, and he's like, he doesn't want to talk to us. He's like, turn it off, and he's like, God help whoever he does want to talk to. And rightfully so, because Maroni is about to get a piece of the Batman. He's at a club, and then Batman starts taking people out. Like Batman starts going on the offensive now because of what went down with Gordon. So he's not happy about it. And he takes a few hits along the way, but still manages to take them out. And at this point, he's gonna have to deal with that. He's gonna have to deal with Batman. So, and I really like what he does. He takes them up like maybe 3 or 4 floors or something like that, and he's like, "I want the Joker." And he's like, "From one professional to another, if you're gonna try to scare somebody, pick a better spot because from this height, the fall wouldn't kill me." And he's like, "I'm counting on it," and just throws him off. And yeah, um, yeah. So it's like Bruce's penthouse is now the safest place in the city. He's just like, go straight there. So, and at this point, Harvey Dent is taking this guy hostage that apparently knows something, but he doesn't. Well, or at least he's not going to tell him. Um, so yeah, here's the scene where he's interrogating Maroni, or he's intimidating Maroni. He's like, "The fall wouldn't kill me from this side." He's like, "I'm counting on it." Pushes him right up. Yep. He's like, "Yep. Where is he?" He's like, "I don't know where he is. He must have friends." You met this guy? Someone knows where he is. He's like, nobody's going to tell you anything. So at this point, Joker is like the ultimate mystery. You know, he's the ultimate mystery. Nobody knows where he is. He operates on his own terms. He lives God knows where. Um, and at this point, it's already been known what Joker wants. Like, just take off that mask and let him come find you. So, which he can't do. He um, well, he's got a very limited amount of time because more and more people are dying because of the fact that Batman is not turning himself in. Um, so, and this is where he first does the coin flip. At this point, he does the coin flip for the first time, and he's got that gun in his hand and shit like that. So it's like, this is where we first start to get a glimpse of the Harvey Two Face. So, and again, the cool thing about this is that you see the transition. It's not like he was perfectly fine and then it's not like he was perfectly fine and then all of a sudden, he had the accident and then turned into Two Face. It's like, no, you start to see what happens and what ultimately changes him. So his life. Batman tells him the story of this guy here. And this is where they have a meaningful conversation right here. He's like, "You're the symbol of hope that I could never be. If anybody saw this, everyone, everything would be undone." So, and then the criminals they put all the streets were getting released, and Jim Gordon would have died from that. Like, you're gonna hold a press conference tomorrow morning. He's like, "Why?" He's like, "No one else will die because of me. Gotham's in your hands now." Gives him back the coin. He's like, "No, you can't." So, very interesting part of the entire film. So, and she went to Bruce's penthouse, of course. And then Batman's got no choice but to turn himself in. He's like, you think that's gonna stop the Joker from killing? But he's like, "I've got enough blood on my hands." And he's seen what he has to become to stop men like him. So in other words, he has to kill in order to stop him. At least that's what he believes. So, and at this point, he tells Rachel at this point, he's like, you know, "Did you mean what you said? If I was done someday?" And then he tells her, "Yeah." And then she tells him, "Yes, I mean it." So, and then he kisses her and walks away. And he's like, if you turn yourself in, they're not gonna let us be together. So this is where the film really takes an interesting turn. Like everything, like you start to see things. Like there's like a very small slowdown in the film. Um, and then he starts asking Alfred for his advice. He's like, take it, endure it. They'll hate you for it, but that's the point of Batman. And that's what the title of the film is all about. It's all about the Dark Knight, and actually that's what Gordon says at the end of the film, which is one of the best lines in the film. He's like, he could take it. He's the Dark Knight. So, and I very much paraphrase that. There's kind of like an ending monologue, so to speak, of what Gordon said. And what Batman does, or what he doesn't do, and the fact that he just takes it, is what is amazing. And he's like, they're gonna lock me up too as your accomplice. And he's like, your accomplice? Yeah, I'm gonna tell them the whole thing was your idea. And Alfred just looks. And then Bruce goes to this place here, and um, uh, the Batman has offered to turn himself in. So he's like, let's consider the situation. Should we give in to this terrorist demand, or do we actually think he's going to? We'd rather protect the outlaw when the lives of citizens. The Batman is an outlaw. That's not why we're demanding in terms of. We're doing it because we're scared. We're happy to let. We've been happy to let the Batman run the streets for us, clean up the streets for us before. So so very interesting at this point. So at this point, they don't want any dead cops, and they're saying that the Batman should turn himself in, and they're right. So Bruce is about to step up and turn himself in. So at this time, he's like, take the Batman into custody. He's like, I am the Batman. And Harvey Dent basically took it upon himself to say that he's Batman, even though he's not. And it's all just to buy time. And he's turning himself in. So perhaps both Bruce and Mr. Dent believe Batman stands for something more important in the whims terrorist, even if everyone hates him for it. That's the sacrifice. He's not being a hero. Letting Harvey take all the blame is not heroic at all. He's like, you know Bruce better than anybody. And she's like, can you give this for me when the time's right? He's like, how am I going to know? And she said, not sealed. So in other words, she wants Alfred to read it. And Michael Caine is just so brilliant as Alfred. I love his take. When I heard that they cast Michael Caine, I was just as happy that they cast Michael Caine like they did Bale as Batman, because I had seen Equilibrium. Obviously, I'd seen Michael Caine, but I'd seen Equilibrium, and I thought it was like awesome. Like, man, he'd make a good Batman, and lo and behold, he became Batman. So he was one of the guys that was running up, and I'm like, ooh, I hope he wins it, and he ended up winning it. So, and some of the cops are actually applauding him as he's getting out of there. So, um, they either believe that some of them believe that he is the Batman, and some of them believe that he's setting up a trap and stuff like that. And then Harvey's like, I'm not leaving something like this up to chance. He's like, I'm not. Like, yeah, you make your own. So at this point, you know, he's basically setting up a trap for the Joker because the Joker believes that Harvey is Batman, so he'll go after him. And then you've got, which by the way, Aaron Eckhart would have made a good Batman too. By the way, just an FYI. But there's also that um, the fact that like obviously Batman's gonna go with it, and then Joker's gonna do his thing, and boom, Joker showed up out of nowhere and just shot a guy. Again, those quick cuts very effective in this film. Um, very effective. So we like turkeys at Thanksgiving dinner. I love how they did that. We'll be like turkeys on Thanksgiving dinner, and you see a fire truck that's just you see a fire truck that's basically like just out of there, like it's on fire. And then you've got the action scene with the chase that's about to happen now. So if there had to be a chase scene, it would be this scene here. So they've definitely improved on what everything that's about to happen in this scene. um and Joker's actually going after the DA at this point. And I love how they shot pretty much almost everything practically in this. And you got the big Mack truck, of course. And then there's Joker. And of course, he's got his guns and shit like that. And of course, that thing is bulletproof. So that's. He's going to need a lot better to get something big, a lot bigger to get through this. And there he goes. He gets out the bazooka, or is that a bazooka? Is that what it is? Yep. Fires at it, and then there goes the car. And then I guess he's going to need one more to fire at the. Huh. Again, so much awesome action. I mean, looking at this, watching this film all these years later makes me appreciate it that much more. And then here comes Batman finally showing up with the tumbler, and then we get to see the tumbler in action once again. Although the tumbler itself is not the major one in this, like um, uh, the major highlight in terms of Batman's vehicle, at least not this time. But we do see a little bit of it, and we're reminded just how freaking powerful that thing is, as well as flexible and everything else. So but Joker's got more bazooka ammo. And then I'm really impressed with just how flexible and how the tumbler can maneuver so well. And Batman puts himself in front of the fire and sacrifices the tumbler. The tumbler could take a bazooka, in which it does, and it crashes. So saving Harvey Dent's ass and sacrificing his tumbler to do so. But thankfully, though, he's kind of got like a little bit of a backup, though, which we don't see until later on. Well, we kind of saw it in the trailers and stuff. So, um, so basically, yeah, he can't use the tumbler anymore, but he's got kind of a interesting ejection, so to speak, in which we're introduced to like what's it called, the Bat Pod or something. So, and that thing moves very interestingly well. But we've got the ejection sequence, which is pretty damn cool. And of course, the Batmobile or the tumbler self destruct. That way, nobody messes with it, stuff like that. So, and again, it's very, very flexible, which is also awesome. So again, it retains a lot of the movement that the tumbler did, but it's kind of like in miniature form. So and then there's a lot of mirrors being torn apart from cars now because Batman is managing to squeeze through in between. So, and then here comes Joker doing his thing. He's like, rack him up, rack him up, rack him up. And you know what? When you look at like how much they use Joker and Batman in the film, it's like, in terms of what they do with Batman, it's like, um, it's still, I think Batman still gets a little bit more screen time than Joker, if I'm not mistaken, if not equally. Um, but they used Joker a good amount in this film for one film that we got him in. But they didn't overdo it though. Again, that just goes to show that the director was just so good with that. And again, you got the helicopter crashing down, and then you got Harvey Dent inside the vehicle, and then Joker, of course, doing his laugh. The Joker laugh was very interesting in this film. And again, the different routes that Batman's taken in order to get to where he needs to get. Pretty damn cool. And then with the cape and everything like that, it makes it look even cooler with the cape flapping, if that's the proper terminology. And then that ammunition, man, is really fucking powerful. And there's Batman right there. And he's going to play chicken. So, but his plan is not to take out. And then it's, again, very flexible. He's able to get really low and he goes around. And here we go. Takes down the Mack truck. And then that was practically filmed. There was no special effects or anything like that. It was like they actually flipped the Mack truck, which is pretty cool. Um, and then here you get the scene with Heath doing what he's doing. So, and then Joker actually wants Batman to run him over. Come on, let's go. Not firing at Batman. And he knows he won't do it, in which causes him to crash. So they think they got him at this point, and he tries to move his mask, and he gets electrocuted. That's funny. Then Joker beats his own guy up a little bit, and out of nowhere, a cop right behind him just takes him down, and wham bam, there's Gordon. Like, we got you. So it was a trick. So, and I remember at the theater, people at the theater were like, wow. So he's like, no, I trusted Batman to do the right thing all along. He's like, which was what? Saving my ass in terms of Harvey Dent and everything. But the backup plan is that he is not going to go where he thinks he's going to go. And then there's a whole bunch of knives and all sorts of equipment in his pockets and shit. They're finding all sorts of stuff and they're like, what the hell? No patent, no matches on prints, DNA, dental, nothing. Clothing is custom, no label. Nothing in his pockets but knives and lint. Alias. Like, you're gonna need some rest, Gordon. Tomorrow you take the big job. You have to say in the matter. You have no say in the matter. Commissioner Gordon, and he gets promoted. Then even Joker starts clapping. And then he goes home. Then of course his wife slaps him and then hugs him. And then one dude is not feeling well in there, and he's not faking it. And then his son is like, "Did Batman save you, Dad?" He's like, "Yes, he did." Actually, no. He said, "Actually, this time I saved him." Phones are ringing already, and they've got problems. And they haven't said any. And then Joker hasn't said anything yet. So, evening, Commissioner. And it's all dark in there and everything. So, at this point, right now, this is one of the highlight scenes of the film. He's like, Harvey Dent never made it home. He's like, of course not. He's like, what have you done? He's like, me? I was right here. Who did you leave him with? You know, with your people, assuming, of course, they're still your people and not Maroni's. He's like, does it depress you, Commissioner, just to know how alone you really are? So at this point, he's like, what's the time? He's like, what difference does that make? Like, well, depending on the time, you may be in one spot or several. So, okay. So Gordon lets the Joker, he takes the handcuffs off. He's like, I'm gonna need a cup of coffee if we're gonna play games. He's like, oh, the good cop, bad cop routine? And he's like, nah, not exactly. And at this point, Batman's been behind him the entire time, and it's dark, and bam, here we go. And he's like, you let 5 people die, you didn't disappoint, and then you let Dent take your place. So it's like, even to a guy like me, that's cold. And I'm like, I remember my friends were laughing at that part. They're like, even to a guy like me, that's cold. So at this point, he's like, why do you want to kill me? He starts laughing. He's like, I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? I remember my friend was laughing at that. It's like, he's like, go back to ripping off mob dealers. He's like, no, you complete me. He's like, don't talk like one of those guys. You're not them, even if you like to be. Like to them, you're just a freak, just like me. They need you right now. But when they don't, they'll cast you out. Their code, their morals. So it's, Joker, if you think about it, very well written over here. He's like, when things are down, you'll see I'm not a monster. Ahead of the curve. And Batman's had enough at this point. It's like, you have all these rules and you think they'll save you, and then like, don't worry, he's in control. The cops are like, he's in control. He's like, I've only got one rule. He's like, that's the rule you're gonna have to break. The only sensible way to live in this world is to live without rules. And tonight you're gonna break your one rule. He's like, I'm considering. He's like, oh, there's only minutes left, so you're gonna have to play my little game if you want to save one of them. Like, what? Them? He's like, for a while there, I thought you really were the way you threw yourself after her, and then now this is where Batman gets pissed. And the cops go in because they want to stop him, but they can't. He's locking the door, and yup. And Batman is literally beating the shit out of him, and there's nothing that he. And again, the more he hits him, it just doesn't do anything. He's like, you can't threaten me. He's like, don't worry, I'm gonna tell you where they are, both of them. He's like, you're gonna have to choose. He's like, he's at such and such, and she's at such and such. So, but what he did was he did it backwards. And again, just this movie again goes in certain directions that you don't expect it to go to. And when you have a villain that's written like this and played like this, it's like, what in the hell is going to happen next? And that's what they do effectively throughout this film. It not only does it keep the pace steady throughout the entire film for the most part, but it keeps making you ask questions in terms of what the hell is going to happen next, right? And that's what makes this film so great. And then, of course, whenever you get moments with Heath Ledger on film, he just nails it every time. And then he even gets under this cop's nerves. He's like, "How many of your friends have I?" So he's like, "You killed 6." So at this point, he he basically gets under this guy's nerves, and he's actually able to get through him. So again, just goes to show you that, like, basically, if you want to define the Joker in the most simplest way in one sentence, it is crazy but not stupid. So, and if you look at some of the villains throughout movie history, what do they have in common? Lots of them are crazy, and not all of them are stupid. So at this point right now, you've got Rachel, who's trapped in her predicament, and then you've got him. And then he pretty much he fell over with the chair, and now you've got the gasoline that's gonna cover half of his face. And then Joker just starts talking to this guy. He's like, I use a knife. He's like, guns are too quick. We can't savor all the other bullshit that he says. He's like, in their last moments, people show you who they really are. So he's like, in a way, I knew your friends better than you ever did. So again, he's saying all this shit. He's like, do you want to know which one of your friends were cowards? And then at this point, this guy's pissed off. This one guy whose belly was hurting in prison is like, he's got something that's in his belly that's about to go boom boom. It's actually a cell phone. And of course, Joker, I guess, was armed the entire time with that piece of mirror that Batman broke. And Joker's just like, I just want my phone call. And there's 40 seconds left on the clock before there's boom boom, and Batman is going after Rachel, or he thinks is Rachel. And then Joker gets his phone call. And at this point, what does he call? He calls the phone that's in that guy's belly, which causes the phone to cause the explosions. Which sets him free. And at this point, Batman's going in the building, cops are going for Dent, and it's Harvey. He expects to see Rachel, but it's Harvey, so he knows he's been tricked. He's like, no, not me. Why are you coming for me? Excuse me. And then the explosion goes off. Gets out of there just in time, but some of the fire gets on his face and it burns part of his face. I really, very interesting how they did that with the special effects on how they managed to do that. And then Lau was in prison, and then Joker's letting Lau out. And he planned to be caught. Everything was there for a reason. Everything was there for a reason, and Joker planned it all. Despite the fact that he says he doesn't plan anything. He just does things. Doesn't plan things, he just does them. And right there in this shot right here where you see Batman standing over the wreckage, that's actually the DVD. Like when you see the disc on the DVD, that's what you see. And he actually finds Harvey's coin, and the coin is half screwed and half half damaged and half undamaged. So, and then at this point, Alfred reads Rachel's letter. And Alfred is about to give Bruce some food, and he hasn't even taken off his. All he's taken off of is his cowl and his cape. And at this point, he decides to take the letter away, and he's like, you know, and that's another good line. I let that murdering psychopath burn him half to hell. See, this is the point where, and here's the thing, like Bruce actually said that she was going to wait for him, and then Harvey could never know. And he takes the letter, and he's like, "What's that?" And he's like, "It can wait." So basically, because the letter from Rachel to Bruce was that she chose Harvey. So the last thing he needs is more pain at this point. So and he's got his coin, and then he wakes up and he sees his coin, which so. Then he flips it over to the other side and he sees that it's messed up, and then this is where he starts to like lose it. But the thing is, was everything like I wonder, was it makeup that they did for Harvey or was it CG? I'm pretty sure it was makeup. And the guy and the man did a damn good job with the makeup for Harvey. And I like how they don't show him up until later. Like they don't show him until like a specific part of this moment. So at this point right now, he's basically made his transformation in Two Face, both mentally and physically. And he basically says to him, "Oh, remember what they used to call me?" He's like Two Face, Harvey Two Face. And then they cut before he turns his face, and then because they're saving it for one specific moment later on in this. So, and then there it is. Great makeup job. And then there goes Maroney. Now Maroney actually tells Gordon that he'll tell him where he is this afternoon. And then of course you see all that mob cash right up there with Lau at the very top. So it's a big wad of cash. He's like, "What are you gonna do with all your money?" He's like, "I'm a guy with simple taste. I enjoy dynamite and gasoline and gunpowder." And then they start like putting gas all on all the money. He's like, "You know the cool thing about that those things have in common?" He's like, "They're cheap." So at this point, he's like, "Oh, he's like, I'm a man of my word. I'm only burning my half." Like, all you care about is money. Nice background shot here too of all the money burning in the background. Tell your men they work for me now. It's my city. He's like, they're not going to work for a freak. Freak? Why don't we cut you up in a little piece and feed you to your pooches? Like, it's not about money, it's about sending a message. So at this point, Joker calls the main thing. He's like, hmm. Like, I don't want Mr. Reese spoiling anything, but why should I have all the? And he's like, Give somebody else a chance. So at this point, he's like, hey, if this guy isn't dead in 60 minutes, I'll blow up a hospital. It's like, really? So at this point, they also show off a Lamborghini in this film, which are always amazing cars. And I'm sure Christian Bale absolutely enjoyed driving that car for the brief moments that he did. I wonder, has anybody ever driven like one of those exotic cars? Is it a rush? I mean, for me, a car is a car, but not everybody will agree. So at this point right now, there's so many people out there that are trying to kill that one dude. And then they're looking at hospital admissions. And then all the guys at Gotham General are getting the hell out of there. They're evacuating the entire place. And then at this point, Gordon gets a text message. He's like, watch out. And of course, one of the funnier parts of the film is and then of course this is the part where the whole theater was laughing when they saw this. In the whole nurse's uniform, and then he's like, do I really look like a guy with a plan? See, that's the thing. Harvey is also an intelligent man at this point, but he could be easily manipulated because he's pissed off at this point. Trying to control their little worlds. The schemists. They're schemists. Control their little. That's hilarious. So at this point right now, Joker takes the Harvey Two-Face test of where you have to flip a coin and stuff, and You got another guy who's waiting on another guy to run to have an accident with the cops. He's like, look what I did to this city with just a couple of drums of gas and a bullet. Like it's all part of the plan. Puts the gun in his hands, like puts it on his forehead, and he's like, "Produce a little chaos." He's like, "You know what the cool thing is about chaos?" He's like, "It's fair." You know, Joker's like, "Yep, now we're talking." He's like, shows him both sides of the coin. He's like, "You live, die." And then Joker's like, "Now we're talking." And Bruce Wayne manages to get in the between the. That's the second time he's done that. And now Bruce Wayne is pretending to be the billionaire, and he's like what? I was just trying to catch the light. And then he looks at the guy real quick, briefly, and he's like, gives him a look, and he's like, "Yep, I saved your mind. Yeah, I saved your life." He's like, "You think I should go to a hospital?" He's like, "You don't watch a whole lot of news, do you, Mr. Wayne?" And of course, we get the famous scene where the hospital blows up, and Heath Ledger is just walking out in that whole nurse's outfit, and the end of it apparently was improvised. I'm assuming, maybe. Or maybe they were supposed to cut and then he just kept going. I'm not sure. And boom, there it is. And of course, it was a school bus. And there goes Gotham General. And they cleared the building, though, thankfully. Now Harvey's kind of gone missing. And can you imagine what The Dark Knight Rises would have been like if Joker was in that one as well? And then at this point in the R&D department, Lucius Fox is being made aware that something's going on in the R&D department, so he's got to find out what's going on. Wham bam. Whole bunch of little screens, kind of like that sonar thing, but he took it into one big TV. But How, like, how do you think of something like that so quick? I mean, it's not, but it's a little, well, it is what it is. So he basically turned the whole sonar concept with that cell phone from earlier and just turned it into one big ass screen to where they can triangulate his position. And here's Harvey Dent walking into the bar. And with a gun. And at this point, here we go with the coin flip. It's like, I didn't know what they were going to use. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to you either. So, uh-oh. Bad side of the coin, and bam. And then Lucius Fox is like, this is dangerous, unethical. You've turned every cell phone in Gotham into a microphone and a high frequency generator receiver. You took the sonar concept and applied it to every phone in the city. It's like, yep. With half the city fitting into your sonar, it's like an image you call Gotham. He's like, this is wrong. Got to find. So at this point, he's breaking the law in order to find him. Like, at what cost? The database is null key encrypted. Can only be accessed by one person. He's like, this is too much power for one person. He's like, that's why I gave it to you. You're the only one you can use it. Spying on 30 million people isn't in my job description. So it's like this scenario sample and talks. We can. He's like, I'll help you this one time. He's like, but consider this my resignation. As long as this machine that Wayne. He's like, when you're finished, type in your name. So, and the cool thing about that is when he types his name, the whole thing just self destructs. And at this point, the mayor and Gordon are talking at this point since he's commissioner now. And there's a lot of shit going on, man. A lot of shit. Oh, and here's Maroney with his cane. And then, of course, we see that Harvey Dent is in there with him and armed. He's like, do you love your wife? And he's like, yes. You imagine what it would be like? You know? He's like, your Joker killed your woman. He made you like that. Joker's just a mad dog. I want whoever let him off the leash. And he's like, if I tell you what you want to know, will you let me go? He's like, can't hurt your chances. And he's like, it was Ramirez. Flips the coin. Says that it couldn't hurt your chances. You're a lucky man. Flips coin again. Like, but he's not. Like, who? Your driver. And he shoots the driver. And they get in a car crash. Hardly a drop of blood spilt in this film with all the things that go down. And you see two ferry boats, one loaded with prisoners and another one loaded with non-prisoners. Oh, cool. And they're named Liberty and Spirit. Cool. Nice shot of Chicago in the background. And another cool shot of Batman just listening for shit in the background, just sitting there waiting with his motorcycle or the Bat Pod or whatever you want to call it. And one guy goes down below and he sees a whole bunch of explosives and shit, and he's like, "Uh-oh." Like it's rigged to blow, and then there's this. And it's the detonator. And then Joker comes on the microphone and he's like, "You're all gonna be part of a social experiment." That's cool. The voice is on the ferry, but they can't tell where the source is. So now, and that's interesting. He's making people choose in terms of like, hey, these guys are prisoners, and the other people are not prisoners. So, and at this point, uh, it's like on one hand, they basically have the power to blow each other's boats up. So it's like, and then all of a sudden they're starting to talk about it and make gestures and shit and talk about it. Like, hey, all those guys over there, hey, they had their chance. And at this point, Ramirez is being held hostage by Harvey Two Face to call Gordon's family and leave the house. And Ramirez ends up living. And this is very interesting in terms of morality. Because you got some guys out here that are like wanting to, they want to put it to a vote. And got everybody saying, "Hey, just push the button, just push the button." A little bit of a callback from the first film to how when Batman got out of that, like jumped out of that building. I wonder if it was shoot, but and a little bit of a throwback to the animated series of where Batman's eyes turn white, which is pretty cool. Kind of a throwback to the cartoon. And then Batman can pretty much see everything through sonar. Pretty damn cool. And then Harvey ended up calling Gordon. He's like, "This is where your family is." And the SWAT, it's just been known now that the SWAT team is targeting the wrong people. Really cool action over here in terms of what Batman does from going from floor to floor, taking everybody out and freeing the hostages and using his sonar to do it. Then he sees that Joker is not too far above him with dogs, three of them actually. And the cops are about to attack the wrong people because they got Joker masks. Go figure. Then he uses that gun that we saw earlier when he go break into Law's place. And again, Batman continuing to do what he does. Quite a lot more action in this film than the first one when you put it all together, as well as the pacing. They got Batman, and it looks like they caught him. And he pulls a little bit of a trick in order to get himself out of there, and now he can go all the way up top, classic Batman style, to have a little date with the Joker. And three dogs. And of course, he sent. It's very funny. how in the very beginning of the film Batman had to deal with dogs, and now at the very end he's dealing with dogs again. And then one of the prisoners, played by um, T. Liston, I think is his name. Basically takes it upon himself to do something in this scene. He's like, "Give it to me." And then there's one guy on the other boat that wants to do it or is willing to do it. Then of course we have our little one-on-one showdown with Batman and Joker. And he's telling the guys like, "Give me the detonator, and I'll do what you did 10 minutes. I'll do what you would." And then he just tosses it out the window. And then Joker, of course, is expecting one of the two ships to blow everything up, and this guy doesn't have the guts to do it. He puts it back. And then Joker is just like surprised. It's 12. He's like, Batman's like, "What are you trying to prove? That everybody's as ugly as you deep down?" And then Joker starts saying, he's like, "It's a funny world we live in." So, and it's 12:01 and nothing's happened. So he's like, "You can't rely on anybody these days. Got to do everything yourself." Like, I came prepared. He's like, "By the way, do you know how I got these scars?" Like, "No, I know how I got these though." And then he just fires the gauntlets at him and throws him off the building. But Grapple hooks his ankle. So at this point right now, it's like, at this point, this is the last scene that we see with Heath. And he's like, "This is when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object." He's like, "You're incorruptible, aren't you?" He's like, "You won't kill me because of some misplaced sense of righteousness. And he's like, "I won't kill you because you're just too much fun." He's like, "I think you and I are destined to do this forever." And he reminds everybody, he's like, "Until they get a good look at the real Harvey Dent and see what he's done." And Batman doesn't know about this yet. And that's interesting. Joker's the main villain, but the film ends with Harvey Dent. He's like, "What did you do?" He's like, "I turned White Knight of Gotham and brought him down to our level." So at this point, Batman's got to go look for Harvey. And of course, he found him because it just makes sense. Or maybe he used the sonar thing to find Gordon. Which could be true. And again, Harvey just like again, you can't help but just listen to what he's saying right here. And then again, of course, Gary Oldman doing his thing as Harvey, as Gordon, just completely like putting it all out there. And again, Hart like Aaron Eckhart just doing it, you know, doing what he does. Of course, Batman takes a shot, but he's got the suit. And of course, Batman. Again, they pulled a they kind of pulled a what's it called? Um, a Batman Forever to a certain extent, to where the coin was flipped and Batman came out of nowhere and tackled Harvey. But he ended up killing Harvey though in the process, saved the boy's life, and then he almost died too. But Batman survived because of this. Harvey didn't. Yep. At this point, though, the only way they can stop people from losing their hope is for Batman to take the blame. Joker can't win if he were to take the blame. And then Gordon's like, no. He's like, you either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And then he's like, yep. Like, that's what I can be. I can be the bad guy. Like, you're not. Like, I'm whatever Gotham needs. Like, call it in. And then there goes the bat symbol. And then Alfred actually burns the letter in order to spare Bruce the pain. And then Lucius is typing his name in the computer, which causes the whole thing to self destruct, which he agrees with. And then Batman makes a run for it. And rightfully so. And then his son is asking, he's like, why is he running? He's like, because we have to chase him. He's like, he didn't do anything wrong, though. Because he's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. So we'll hunt him. Because he can take it. Because he's not a hero. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. The Dark Knight. And the film ends with the Dark Knight title at the end of the film, which made it brilliant. So, and that's how it was, and it made it very interesting. It's like it was intended for Batman to be, the bad guy in the beginning of the next film. So, such a great film. very hard to commentate over, despite the fact that I had seen it many times, but I haven't seen it in a long time though. But uh, yeah, The Dark Knight really is the best Batman movie ever made for good reason. And there will come a time where it will be surpassed. Some people say that Robert Pattinson's Batman possibly surpassed it, but I respectfully don't think so. Although Robert Pattinson's Batman is good, and it's actually quite different as well. But with that being said, in my eyes, respectfully speaking, The Dark Knight has yet to be surpassed. Um, and we'll see what we get in the future as far as that's concerned. I don't know if The Dark Knight, excuse me, I don't know what direction Robert Pattinson's Batman is going to go in, but I can't imagine it being too different than what it's already been doing, because obviously what it's doing has already kind of worked. It's already worked and it's already created a ton of money. So when you put all those things together, it's just the reality of things. And then the reality of things is that Robert Pattinson's Batman, in terms of what that did, um, it's it's it just works for what that film is. But if you were to ask me my opinion, which one is better, respectfully speaking, I'd say The Dark Knight is the best Batman movie that's ever been made. So there's also some animated Batman films that are quite good as well that belong in the discussion. But when you put it all together, The Dark Knight Rises is, in my opinion, the best Batman movie that's ever been made. Um, and maybe I should do a video in terms of like ranking the Batman movies. Maybe I should rank the Batman movies top 10. Um, but yeah, absolutely incredible film. And I saw it in the theater. It was a great experience. And yeah, it was just it was a good time to be a Batman fan. So, but that concludes the commentary of the live comm of The Dark Knight. Um, best Batman movie ever made, in my opinion. So, good job to Nolan. And I do have this kind of fantasy of whether or not, like, if they were to do a Batman Beyond, but with like with this movie, with this trilogy in terms of a continuation, it would be kind of interesting how that would play out. Um, I don't know how they would do it, but obviously Christopher Nolan wouldn't do it. And if he did, obviously Christian Bale wouldn't do anything unless Nolan wanted to do it as well. So they go in pairs, Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan. So um, it was truly a remarkable accomplishment making this film, and in terms of what they released and what they did, what they were able to accomplish. Pretty interesting to think of how the third film would be if Heath Ledger hadn't passed. But despite all that, they did a great job with the third film. They did do a great job with the third film, regardless of all that, and that's because of the writing that went behind it, and of course, Christopher Nolan's genius direction. I think he also wrote it and co-wrote it as well. So, props to him. Props to him and the team, and the way they put all these films together, because they brought Batman back after Batman and Robin. They basically resurrected Batman, and ever since then, we've been getting the type of Batman that we've been getting, which is the correct Batman in terms of how Bob Kane intended him to be. Bob Kane and Bill Finger, I believe it was as well. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, Dark Knight, amazing film. Take care.